Hi everybody, I'm Ryan T. Husk.
He is Ryan T. Husk, and I'm Kit Bowen. And welcome to the Creation Entertainment Podcast, Episode 4. What do we got on the docket, Ryan?
Well, today we have part 2 of the Stephen Moffat interview. You know him as the showrunner for Doctor Who, Netflix's Dracula, and Sherlock.
And on the Pop Culture Cinema Squad episode, Adam and I talk about the Apple TV series Foundation from creators David S. Goyer and Josh Friedman. Very sci-fi, very intense. Tune in. And then in the Creation Looks Back segment, Adam and Gary continue to talk about the relationship with Gene and Majel Roddenberry, especially with Majel after Gene's passing. Plus, there was a missed opportunity. Well, it's going to be a great show, right, Ryan?
I cannot wait. Also, I want you all to check out Creation Entertainment's Trek Tour. If you love Star Trek, you're going to love our Trek Tour, especially the Las Vegas show in August. More information about that a little later. But for now,
tune in.
Enjoy the show.
Welcome back, folks, to part 2 of my interview with Stephen Moffat, in which we continue to explore his wonderful work on Doctor Who, Sherlock, Dracula, and some of the other British TV series that he's been involved with. Amy Pond, Karen Gillan's character that I love so much. Was she created for the launch of your start on the show?
Yes, that's right. Yeah. I was in an odd situation. I was taking over and both leads were leaving. Catherine Tate and David Tennant were both leaving. So I had to come up with 2 new characters. I had to come up with a new version of the Doctor and someone for him to meet, which is quite awkward if you have to do it at the same time. Because in a way, there was no one for Matt Smith to prove he was the Doctor too, because this little girl only ever knew him as the Doctor. But, you know, it worked out and we launched a movie star, so that's okay.
Tell me a little bit about the genesis of the Pandorica and the concept and how you put together about 5 or 6 different time periods to make the story work. It's sprawling.
It was sprawling, and I might disappoint you in my memory not being as good as it should be. It was 15 years ago. I remember I wanted to do the Pandorica Opens episode as the most massively spectacular thing we could imagine, as big as we could make it.
And it was.
Yeah, but also I thought it'd be great if that episode was a sequel to every other episode in the series in that season running up to it. So we have a bit of Churchill, we have a bit of Starship UK, we have all those characters combining to get a message to the Doctor, ending with Vincent's painting of the TARDIS exploding, which I loved. So I was just trying to go all out for epic spectacle, and then collapse it all down to a few people running around a museum in the Big Bang, trying to bring the universe back. That as best I can remember. I remember it was very exciting to write, and I had planned it a long time. In particular, the sequence when in the Big Bang, when Amy summons the Doctor back by remembering the old ride, something old, something new, something borrowed, something blue. I was very proud of that because that was such a good description of the TARDIS.
And you start the story by planting the seed of it with that crack on the wall.
Yeah.
It becomes sort of time itself as a kind of an entity itself, sort of menacing. So it's great how you opened that up. You subsequently went on and you did 7 seasons, was it, as showrunner, or
6? 6 I did. 3 with Matt Smith and 3 with Peter Capaldi,
who we adore as well. Just talk about some of the Doctor Who legacy monsters that you like. Weeping Angels?
Well, I obviously love them because I invented them. And that's my big claim to fame, is I invented the Weeping Angels. There are very few truly iconic Doctor Who monsters. There's the Daleks or the Cybermen, and I think the Weeping Angels on us just below them are just I'm very, very proud of having invented a great Doctor Who monster. Um, I love the Daleks. I love the Cybermen. I used them both several times. I think as a kid, I liked when I was watching it as a child, I liked the Cybermen best. I thought they were really scary and really sort of grown up in some sort of a way. But I mean, you're talking about my favorite show when I was 8 years old,
Well,
so it
and
was really good fun to play with all that.
they all look kind of the same, 50 years later, which is a good thing. It's not a bad thing,
Yeah.
you know.
Well, yeah. As I proved, you're playing with fire if you try and alter those designs because
No,
those designs are really good.
but
You
uh,
should
I, I
leave
am
them alone.
I'm very attached to the Weeping Angels, and they scare the shit out of me. Actually, they're very scary characters, and the whole concept that of kind of quantum physics involved with they don't really exist unless you look at them. I mean, they're very conceptually interesting, and but the scary payoff on them is fantastic. So I wanted to just talk a little bit about there's a couple of other Doctor Who things. I want to save some time for Sherlock, obviously. Just Doctor Who things. Sonic Screwdriver as a tool, as a plot tool. Oh, for God's sakes, really?
Yeah, on my desk
I
at all
want
times.
that. The TARDIS.
Well, I mean, these are great things. I mean, these are some of the best ideas in television history, and I can say that because they're nothing to do with me. I didn't invent them. The TARDIS is an act of genius. The most compelling thing to a child, I think, is the fact it's bigger on the inside. That's just amazing. Outside, it's a dusty blue box, and inside, it's a massive spaceship. I mean, wow. I mean, really, it was kind of a budget cut. They could, in the old series, they couldn't afford a spaceship. So they said, oh, we'll just make it a police telephone box. Brilliant, brilliant. The sonic screwdriver. I think we've sort of forgotten that's kind of a joke. I mean, who makes a screwdriver sonic? I mean, it's such a collision of ideas. Doctor Who's got a screwdriver. We can't have a screwdriver because that's a bit mundane for Doctor Who. Should it be a nuclear screwdriver? No, let's make it sonic because that makes absolutely no sense at all. And I love it. I just love it. It's one of the and the fact that
It's like a Swiss Army knife, so to speak.
yes, and it's
Yeah.
a Swiss Army knife that does everything except anything useful. That's I mean, it will get through any door unless the plot decides you're not meant to get through that door, in which case it stops working. Because apparently, according to some deranged old hack, it doesn't work on wood. That was me. There's all sorts of nonsense. I love it. I love it, but it's the craziest idea.
Let's talk a little bit about a couple of the doctors and just stream of consciousness, whatever you think about them. First of all, Matt Smith, people that you've worked with, Matt.
Matt, God, absolutely gorgeous actor. He was about 26 when he was cast as the Doctor. And I used to say of him that he was like a young man constructed by old men from memory. There was something genuinely like an old professor. He was really, that's a hot, sexy guy, but he was like an old professor the way he talks. I thought, well, that's unmissable for Doctor Who. He was brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
David Tennant.
David Tennant, well, a very good friend of mine. Saw him the other night. Well, he made it was like if Matt Smith was Doctor Who as if he were a cartoon animal, then I think David Tennant was Doctor Who as if he were a screen god. A Hollywood leading man. He was the handsome Doctor who was really, really cool and could do all the stuff. So. It was absolutely brilliant. Very, very funny too.
And then Peter Capaldi, such an amazing difference in flavor. Who cast him?
Me, that was mine.
Incredible casting. Tell me about that.
Well, do you know the real reason was when I first got when I was first writing Doctor Who just for Russell. I met Peter Capaldi, who I'd never met before, and he came over to me, and I wanted to talk to him about The Thick of It, the brilliant show he does. And he didn't want to talk about The Thick of It because he wanted to talk about Doctor Who because he was the biggest Doctor Who fan you could meet. He absolutely loves Doctor Who. He loved it. In fact, a historical fact, the very first person to congratulate Matt Smith in public for becoming the Doctor and tell him he was really good was Peter Capaldi. He bumped into him in the street and said, "Well done, mate. You have done that brilliantly." Um, so anyway, I knew that Peter Capaldi was an amazing Doctor Who fan, and I thought when Matt had decided to leave, wouldn't it be terrible if no one ever asked him, one of the leading actors in the world, if no one ever asked him if he wanted to be Doctor Who? So I did, and wasn't he brilliant? I always think Peter Capaldi as the Doctor is what the Doctor would be like if he was a real person. I think that's what the Doctor would be like. He'd be sort of grumpy, funny, a mad dad. He'd be all those things.
He's sensational. And of course, now in the latest few years, when Russell is back on again as the showrunner, and you've continued to write for the show, which is great. This last season with Nikuti, is that how his name is?
It's Shooty, pronounced Shooty.
Shooty. Which I thought was a great season, and I enjoyed your episode, Boom, very much.
Well, it was slightly mad of me to go back. I hadn't done it for years, and it was just that when Russell was taking it over again, I phoned him up and said, "What are you doing? You mad thing? Have you forgotten what it's like? Have you read your book?" And he just fulminated away about all his plans, and I just chatted to him for a while, and eventually, just because we were chatting, I was trying to think what new thing, what's the only thing I haven't done in Doctor Who, and I thought, well, if he's standing in a landmine and he can't move or do any of the things he normally does, what would that be like? And I just sort of, in a sort of offhand way, suggested it to Russell. I emailed and said, what if he stands in a landmine for the entire episode? And as I pressed send, I was getting up from my desk. He emailed straight back within 30 seconds to say, "Yes, write that now." And I thought, oh, all right, I'll do one more. And then I'll be gone. Then I ended up doing Christmas as well. So that was a bit silly, but I'm finished now. Finished now.
What I think what I love about that episode is these screwed up war machines functioning off of bad algorithms, and it betrays a healthy mistrust of AI and machine technology. What's your own worldview on where AI is taking us now that it seems to be slowly closing in on us for the kill?
Well, I mean, I can be very careful what we say about these things. I mean, first of all, Boom does not take a clear attitude because it's not really the AI's fault, in one sense, and it's AI. It's an AI that saves the day. It's actually not Doctor Who at all. It's the kid's dad in AI form comes back and saves him. So, I mean, I don't know. Look, it's an amazing new tool. It's an amazing new invention. It's an incredible thing. I'm sure when somebody first discovered fire, somebody else was saying we might all burn to death. Well, yeah, you might. Some people will. That's true. But there's a good side to have discovering fire too. With every single invention and every single discovery, there's a good side and a bad side. There's a trade-off. So there are many things that AI will do. I'm prepared to bet that it will be quite extraordinary. Some of the medical stuff is amazing. Its ability to diagnose is slightly more important than any contribution it can make to the rather trivial world of entertainment. So no, I mean, let's wait and see. Great new inventions like that carry dangers, but they carry great benefits too. We have to not be Luddites.
Yes, we're not Luddites. However, we just as long as our creations don't destroy us, that would be fine. We're about to hit onto Sherlock, one of my favorite shows of all time. But before we do, just a quick note about a couple of the companions whom I love. I'm a huge fan of Alex Kingston, and I just wondered, working with her and kind of incorporating her in some of the stories, how you felt about her. And
well, I know. I love Alex. I just worked with her again on a new show called Douglas is Cancelled, currently available on BritBox, Americans, with Karen Gillan too. I loved her. She first worked with her obviously when Russell was running the show, and I wrote Silence in the Library, which introduced River. And having seen Alex play River, I just thought, okay, well, that's too much fun. We've got to have her back. And so we had her in many adventures. I always loved writing River Song. What a character.
River is amazing, and I'm a huge fan of Karen Gillan's too. Amy, I think she's an incredible character and incredible actress, and to see where her career went too, right?
Yeah, yeah, well, wow. Film star, movie star. Also in Douglas is Cancelled on BritBox.
There you go. There you
She
go.
came back to television for me.
All right, we're moving on to Sherlock, but before we do, any parting thoughts about your legacy on Doctor Who and the show itself?
Oh, for heaven's sake, all I care about is that the show carries on. It's a show made of Teflon. It discards each of us like scales from a dragon. It doesn't matter. So the only legacy I cared about was it was still there, and someone else is taking it on and doing amazing new things with it. I don't think you can leave a mark on that show. You can't leave a footprint on it. Made of Teflon.
I beg to differ. I think that you are deeply woven into the mosaic of that show and forever enshrined in fan glory. So I have to give that to you. Anyway, you had an amazing run on that show. Okay, Sherlock. Talk about the genesis of your working with Mark Addis before we even get to the show. How did you and Mark first hook up?
Well, we'd met many, many times, usually by accident because we knew all the same people. But I think we twice went to the theater and discovered we were sitting next to each other was kind of weird. And then, oddly enough, it was Doctor Who. Because we knew each other and got on well, we quite often traveled on the train together to Cardiff to go to where Doctor Who was made.
Yeah.
And because we're both fans and we're both working in the show, we would talk about Doctor Who until we started realizing people were recognizing us, but in particular, recognizing him. And we start listening to what we were saying about Doctor Who. So we thought we'd better change the subject. So we decided to talk about Sherlock Holmes instead. And from that evolved the idea that we admitted that of all the adaptations we liked best the Basil Rathbone, Nigel Bruce ones that were updated. And we sort of said to each other, people should update Doctor Who again and should update Sherlock Holmes again.
Yeah.
And that would be great. And I remember saying that to my wife, Sue, my producer wife, and said, we'll be really cross when someone does that because we should have done it. And she said, I'll get you to a room. You can go into the room and discuss how you do it. And when you come out, we'll go and pitch it. And it went very fast after that.
Did Mark always see himself as Mycroft, or did he know that he would, wanted to act on the show? I mean, isn't that a lot to kind of be a co-showrunner and also act on a show, or is that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it were a bigger part. I think it would be pretty much impossible to be Sherlock Holmes and a co-showrunner. I think that would be a nightmare.
Yeah.
But maybe you could. Maybe he's clever enough. I wouldn't be. But no, it wasn't. Originally, he was thinking maybe he'd be Moriarty. But then I think it was Steve Thompson, the other writer on the show, who said, "Why don't you play Mycroft as a sort of Peter Mandelson type?" And we lit up at that idea, and so he got to be, I thought, a very brilliant Mycroft.
He was fabulous, and I'm glad it worked out that way because I love Andrew Scott, and he was so over the top. How did Benedict get cast? What was that whole process about? Because I mean, he's such a fascinating actor in person.
He was one of the. He wasn't famous at the time at all. He was a sort of very respected actor, and people kept saying of him one day that when that boy gets the right part, he'll be a star. But that right part hadn't come his way yet. And Sue and I were watching the film. What's it called? Oh, it's gone out of my head. Film Atonement. We watched the film Atonement, and we said he looks a bit like Sherlock Holmes. He's got the Sherlock Holmes look, and he's very good. So we arranged a meeting with him, with me and Mark and Sue, and we videoed him playing a few scenes. And we just thought, well, there's really no point looking again. This is obviously the right guy. This is obviously, and there's not that many people who can play this part. And so we cast him. We just cast him on the basis of that. We said to the BBC, look, by the way, We think we found him. And they looked at the video and said, we agree, he's fantastic. But it's a shame he's not. But you did promise us a sexy Sherlock, and is he really sexy enough? Well, the world soon came to a different conclusion on the subject of whether Benedict is sexy. So that was pretty good.
Um, I love the many affectations that he brings to the character. But forgive me, is the character as Conan Doyle originally conceived of him, is he on a spectrum?
Well, I mean, it's questionable whether even our version is. I don't know. He always strikes me as pretty sane about his madness. He likes to say he's madder than he actually is. The He's pretty unrepentant about how he is. He's pretty well adjusted about being Sherlock Holmes. So I've never quite bought the idea he's that much of a loony. He
Well,
just doesn't really mind being different. And if you don't mind being different, that's not a problem. Yes, he's fairly authentic to the original version of the show, given that he's a modern transplant of him.
yeah.
That makes him different automatically. He comes from a different culture, so he's slightly different. But we were pretty faithful to the Doyle version.
One of the narrative devices that you use on the show that I love so much is Holmes's mind palace.
Mm.
Where did you kind of come up with this idea, and how did you think to visualize it so incredibly?
I think it was originally because we had a plot point in Hounds of Baskerville, which essentially amounted to Sherlock Holmes saying, "Oh, I've just remembered something." And we thought we can't do that. You can't just say, "Oh, I've just remembered something." How do we disguise that plot point? By making it exotic. So we came up with this scene where he goes into his mind palace to remember something. But if you look carefully at the scene, all that really happens is he remembers something he'd previously forgotten. So it was for that reason, and then we rather liked it. We liked it very much, and we kept using it. It's the kind of thing that it's the kind of mental discipline that Sherlock Holmes would use. I'm fairly sure.
I think it's a great visual device as well as a story device. It's a great visual device to sort of show his mind process and how he's sort of moving through his different ideas, and that whole huge deep memory that he has. Would he be considered having a photographic memory, or?
No, because if you have a photographic memory, as I understand it, you wouldn't need a mind palace. A mind palace is for those of us who don't automatically store all information. This is a way of storing information which I can't do. That leaves it in imperishable form in your head. Most of your memory gets deleted, as you know, so it's a way of resisting that.
All right. Well, yeah, I also adore Martin Freeman as Watson. How did his casting come about? And
Well,
that,
we sent out for lots of different Watsons, and quite a few came in. He was amongst the ones who in the first round of auditions, and we thought, well, we'll try our best ones with Benedict. So we got several of them back to audition with Benedict to see what the chemistry was like. And then Martin and Benedict played a scene together, and it was immediately electric. And I leaned over to Martin and said, "That's the show. That's the show right there." So like that, just the age-old story of auditioning.
and the rest is history. A couple of other characters from the show that I love, as I alluded to, I love Andrew Scott as Moriarty. He's an incredible pick, and I love the arc that you created with the character. Now, I do believe he did die at the end of the second season, even though digital versions of him appear to manifest themselves throughout the rest of the series. Could you at least give us as kind of a confirmation that he did in fact die?
Definitely dead. He's definitely dead.
He
Yeah,
did.
yeah, yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
just tell us a little bit about Andrew, because he seems like such a gifted actor and he brought so much to the role.
Well, he's brilliant. Obviously, he's when we first did that script, The Great Game, which Mark's script, the only original appearance he would have would be as the character we called Gay Jim, who was going out with Molly Hooper. And originally, we'd never see him as Moriarty in that show, but
Yeah.
but that meant we had no audition scene for Moriarty. So we rustled up a mad scene where he had lots of mad dialogue like I will burn the heart out of you and all that nonsense. And Andrew did it brilliantly. So we thought, well, cast him. And I tell you what, we thought it makes no sense, but we're sticking that scene in the show. So we had him actually appear as fully fledged Moriarty in the last scene of series one for no other reason than we thought, well, it doesn't actually make sense. The logic is nuts, but it was just so great to see him.
There were a couple of other characters from the show that I love. I love Una Stubbs, Mrs. Hudson. She's has an important place in the narrative, right?
In our version, yes. I don't think she barely speaks in the original stories, but we cast Una, who we've sadly lost since she died a few years ago, very sadly. And Una Stubbs just came along and well, knocked it out of the park, became incredibly charming and funny. So, I mean, I'll just say it unequivocally the best Mrs. Hudson ever. And she had more to do than any other Mrs. Hudson. When Una died, I went back and watched all her scenes from Sherlock, and I was quite surprised at how many she had. We loved to give Una loads to do.
Loved her, and I also thought that Rupert Graves was awesome too. I mean, Lestrade is also another kind of an important piece to the narrative in Holmes.
Yeah, I mean it's quite important as Holmes says of Lestrade in the original that he is the best of the Scotland Yarders. So he wanted him to be a good cop, a very intelligent cop, who just isn't as smart as Sherlock Holmes. And in a way, what you need is somebody who looks as though they could be a leading man on their own show. If it wasn't for Sherlock Holmes, and of course Rupert Graves being, I think, the most handsome man in the world, looks like he should have his own show. So he was perfect for it, and a lovely actor, lovely man.
Wonderful. Now, how do you describe your writing relationship? It's between you and Mark, it seems like you write episodes, he writes episodes, you write episodes together. How do you plan out a season, and how do you kind of divide up the writing duties?
Well, generally speaking, what we've done on the shows we've done together is we'll take an episode each, and either we'd get maybe Steve Thompson to write a third one, or later on we would just collaborate on the third one. But the truth is, we oversee every page of every script between us. We do. But we've done every version of writing together. Either we'll submit drafts to each other for rewrites, or we'll sit in the room and work it out together. He's the only person I ever collaborate with. He collaborates with more people than I do, but Mark is the only person I've actually sat in the room and written with. So, yeah,
That's
I'm
an
not into
amazing
collaborating.
collaboration. I'm just going to touch on a few episodes, and I know our time is fleeting now. One of my favorite episodes is A Scandal in Belgravia.
Mm,
I'm really kind of have a love affair with Laura Pulver. I just think
mm.
that Irene Adler is such an incredible character. So just walk us through your recollections of the episode and the story and your thoughts about her.
Well, it's probably my favorite thing I've ever done, actually, Scandal in Belgravia. I remember thinking when I volunteered to do the Irene Adler one, I thought this is a puzzle box twisted love story. I was born to write this, and I adored it, and I thought it was. I think it's in my view, the best episode of Sherlock that we did. Mark thinks the same. And everything worked in that one. The brilliant Paul McGuigan directed it so beautifully. The design was gorgeous. The score was amazing. Lara Pulver was heartbreaking. It was just the show where everything seemed to work perfectly, and I absolutely adore it. As I say, it's my favorite thing I've ever done.
I would dare say that she was the woman in Sherlock's life.
Yes, I don't. Well, I mean, yeah, Molly Hooper is doing better than she knows she's doing, but yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So we got to the end of season 2 with the Reichenbach fall, and I guess that's that whole Moriarty and Holmes death scene together has been sort of reshaped a few times, and you actually came back and revisited that later on in the show. But kind of how did you plan on that construction, and the whole, breaking into the Tower of London and all that. Uh, how did you plan to vary that from sort of the classic Conan Doyle trope?
I can't. I don't really remember. I remember we did a lot of planning on it, and we wanted a proper intellectual battle between Moriarty and Sherlock Holmes, and we wanted to end with the definite death of Sherlock Holmes and then reveal that he was alive. That was our plan from the start. But the final problem's a great story, and we were just basically riffing on that.
And then, of course, after waiting 2 years, we do finally find out that, of course, he did live in the empty hearse. And I thought the construction of how he faked his death was pretty incredible.
Yeah, I mean, except if you watch carefully, the absolute fact is Dr. Watson never sees the body hit the ground. So it's fairly obvious something got in the way. I always thought, come on, there's no other possible solution. It's a big blue cushion. But yeah, it was good. It was great fun doing that. Everyone was very invested in it. It was a laugh.
And did you plan to all along that you would be leading up to Watson getting married and that whole?
Yeah. We knew we were going to bring in Mary. Yeah, because Mary's in the stories and she's quite important in the story. So we wanted to do Mary.
So I thought that the Sign of Three episode was, an awful lot of fun. And uh, let's say in a scene where, you're looking at the Queen's Guard, would you actually film the Queen's Guard, or is that because it looked like it?
Yeah, we did something. I can't remember now. I can't
It
remember.
looked like you literally were filming with the Queen's Guard right there.
I think we just had people in costumes. I
Uh,
mean, you can do that.
uh, it's fantastic. Um, one of my favorite baddies was Lars Mikkelsen as
Yeah.
Magnuson. I thought he was a great villain.
Yes, he was.
And I thought the ending was fairly shocking that
Yeah.
Holmes just blew his head off. I mean,
Yeah.
did you make that conscious decision that you were gonna? I mean, that
Yeah. I thought it was yeah, with all else fails, I think Sherlock Holmes just shooting someone was a cool thing to do. And I think he would in those circumstances do it.
uh, for me it was shocking and a surprise because again, I didn't think that he would step over that line in that way, but
Well, needs must. Dr. Watson was in trouble.
another episode that I loved was The Abominable Bride.
Yeah.
And I like the fact that you took us back into sort of the Victorian kind of era,
Yeah.
gave us,
Yeah.
gave us the feel for that. What kind of challenges come with reconstructing that kind of an era? It's a big production challenge, right?
Yeah. It's more expensive. And we had to build a new version of 221B. It is more expensive, but we very much wanted to do it because we wanted a chance to see Martin and Benedict in the proper gear, in the proper era, doing their take on that. So it was great fun. We had a lovely time doing it.
How about Mark in that fat suit? That was pretty crazy,
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was a tough thing to wear.
but it was great to see that. And also focusing kind of on Holmes's addiction. You allude to
Yeah.
it a little bit earlier in the series, but towards the backside of the series, it really starts to become prevalent.
It does. I mean, I'm always wary of focusing too much on that, to be honest, because it doesn't really happen that often in the stories. But we thought it was a reasonable thing to get into. I think we did it moderately well.
I think you did it very well. Also, of course, the fact that Mycroft and Holmes had actually both a sister and a brother. That mystery kind of was kept until pretty well much the end of the series.
Yeah. Well, that was our invention, the sister, Sherlock Holmes' smartest sister. Yeah, that was good fun. Yeah. Why not? Why shouldn't he have a sister? A mad sister in the attic.
We're almost at the end of our tether. I just wanted to touch briefly on Dracula, the miniseries for Netflix, which was fantastic. Congratulations on that. And again, you collaborated with Mark on that?
Yes, that's right. Yes, very much the Sherlock team doing Dracula. Very much so. Yes.
Uh, how did that come about? Did you two guys just get together and say, let's do a Dracula story? Let's.
Yeah, essentially, yeah. We thought we both love Dracula, and we just thought, well, let's give it a go. Let's see. And our idea was, can we make Dracula the hero of his own story? Because normally Dracula is actually in the background, and the other characters are more important in the story. But with this, we thought we could do that. To be honest with you, I think Sister Agatha ended up being the hero of that story because she was with Dolly Wells as Sister Agatha was such a scene stealer.
Yeah.
But Claes Bang was a fantastic Dracula, and we loved doing it. It was great fun.
Any chance of any more shows or miniseries for Netflix? Because they do a lot of stuff these days.
Well, we're in talks about various things, but we'll see. We'll see if people say yes to us.
I don't want to hex anything. We're pretty well much at the benediction of our discussion, but any other points you wanted to make, or any thoughts for your fans here in the U.S. as well as around the world?
Well, I'm delighted to have fans anywhere, and it's wonderful for us that people in America are watching these mad British shows. That's what in return we watch mad American shows. So it's a good cultural exchange. So no, just huge gratitude for all the years of interest. It's sustained me in a very nice life. Thank you. Keep watching. There'll be more stuff. Doctor Who there's a new series of Doctor Who coming out, not involving me at all this time, but with Shooty and Russell, and it will be brilliant. It will be amazing. Please keep watching and go and watch Douglas is Cancelled on BritBox with Karen Gillan and Alex Kingston from Doctor Who, and Ben Miles from Coupling, and me from all the above.
We shall, and we thank you so much for your the generous time that you gave us. And I know I speak on behalf of all of us. We're wishing you the best in the future, and looking forward to seeing your next projects come to fruition to entertain us as much as you have in the past.
Thank you very much.
Right.
Lovely to talk.
Stephen. Thank you so much.
Bye now. Bye now.
Welcome back to the Creation Entertainment Pop Culture Cinema Squad. I'm Adam Malin, and once again joined by my illustrious colleague, Kit Bowen.
Hello, how are you?
Good, Kit. And today we're going to try and do a deep dive on Foundation, the TV series.
You're going to have to help me on this one, Adam.
Okay, well, the roots of this actually go back to creation conventions in the 1970s. Gary and I started out doing comic conventions in New York City, and every year the great Dr. Isaac Asimov used to attend our shows, which is miraculous in and of itself. But around that time, I was also becoming a sci-fi literary fan, and of course I read I, Robot and the Foundation series, and I remember saying at the time, boy, that'd sure make a great TV series.
You did at the time.
Of course, it's a vast sweeping saga over tens of thousands of years throughout a galactic spread, and so therefore something that really could only have been done visually within the last few years.
Yeah, I mean, that is sort of the case for many of these, ahead of their time kind of books, like Asimov's books and Vonnegut and things like that. It's like trying to do them back then would have been impossible, but now
So thankfully, David Goyer, who's such an incredible creator, and
great.
Josh Friedman created the Foundation TV series. And for those of you that aren't familiar with it, we're going to try and set up the story for you. It's very sprawling and complicated, but we'll do our best job to get you up to date on it. And we're excited because we've been through 2 seasons so far. Season 3 is on its way. We're hoping it's going to get released this year. Do
I
we
think
have
so.
a due date yet?
I don't have a date, but it
Yeah.
definitely has. They finished filming it, so.
All right, well, let's set the scene. And this is in the far future. There's a sprawling galactic empire, and Asimov kind of based this empire roughly on the Roman Empire.
I was going to say, yeah.
But not exactly. But it's a dynastic triumvirate consisting of Emperor Cleon's clones. It's a clone dynasty. The ruling clone is Brother Day, played amazingly by Lee Pace.
Yeah, he's
who's
fantastic.
Magnetic personality. He's the Cleon in his prime. And his older clone brother is Brother Dusk, played amazingly by Terrence Mann, a very distinguished actor, who is retired and aging. And then there is Brother Dawn, a young Cleon that's being trained to succeed Brother Day. And this genetic dynasty has been surreptitiously administered by the Lady Demerzel. She's the Emperor's major domo, but secretly an ageless humanoid robot. And
that we find out, actually, in season 2. So obviously there will be some spoilers in this. So if you haven't seen Foundation
a few
yet,
spoilers.
just know that we probably will be spoiling here and there. So just be forewarned on that. So Demerzel actually is an ancient AI, basically, from Earth.
And there's a reason, because, well, first of all, those of you that are familiar with Isaac Asimov's 3 laws of AI, robot AI intelligence, one of those is that robots can do no harm to humans.
Yes.
Well, take that and throw it out the window.
Well, she can be reprogrammed, basically.
But kind of sort of like the same as we're seeing in some other sci-fi sagas,
yes.
like Dune Prophecy.
Yes.
AI has been outlawed, and it doesn't give me good confidence in AI in our real world today, kid.
I always ask people, have you seen the Terminator movies? Do you know what could happen?
But also in Foundation, intelligent machines have essentially been outlawed.
Okay.
And especially intelligent humanoid robots. Nonetheless, Lady Demerzel is clandestinely, she's the major domo of the Cleonic dynasty.
And she's played by Laura Byrne. She's very good.
Who's fantastic.
Very good.
She is actually an ageless humanoid robot. Now, into this saga is thrust young Gail Dornick, played by Lula Bell.
Yes.
And Gail is sort
of a newcomer as well.
She's a mathematical prodigy. And she wins a very complex mathematical contest created by mathematician and psychology professor Harry Seldon.
Played by the great Jared Harris.
The great Jared Harris, who we love to hate in some roles and love to love in other roles.
Yes.
And Harry has essentially been trying to find a protege to work with him on developing a complex algorithmic system that we'll talk about in just a minute. But Gail arrives on Trantor, which is the Empire homeworld. And she and Harry are thrust into the center of a conflict between this Cleonic dynasty and Seldon's school regarding the merits of his theory of psychohistory.
Right.
Can we explain what psychohistory is? Sort of, it's like the algorithm to end all algorithms, okay?
To predict the future, right?
It predicts that events and actions of large masses of people across vast timelines, thousands of years, that there are patterns that can be predicted with great accuracy.
Right.
And Gail comes and works with him and validates his findings, and then they publicly forecast the decay and imminent fall of the Cleonic Empire.
Which does not thrill the Days.
That is
especially
correct.
Day. What's it, the brothers, I guess is what they're called.
However,
Brother
they
Day.
predicted that some of this fall or damage can be mitigated by the creation of a foundation. And this foundation will preserve the collective knowledge and innovations of humanity, ostensibly in a location which we'll get into, but the Cleons initially kind of dismissed this as a sort of a quaint thing, not really a threat to them.
Right.
But in predicting the first crisis, as they're called, Harry's system proves to be true.
Right.
And so the Cleons have no choice but to recognize that, in fact, his theories are not only very possible, but also dangerous to their dynastic rule.
Yep.
So they agree to place Harry's school and his disciples and followers on a remote planet at the edge of the galaxy called Terminus.
Not to be confused with Terminus from The Walking Dead.
That's correct. This Terminus is a planet where the Foundation is established. It's a colony to preserve human knowledge and to predict the eventual return of civilization to the galaxy after the predicted fall of the Galactic Empire,
Right.
which psychohistory is predicting.
Right.
Okay, so
That's kind of an overview.
uh,
But each of these characters, I mean, really, there's kind of like 3 or 4 different story arcs, right?
yes, but it's all basically a tension between the Empire and this growing
Right.
Foundation.
Right.
And season 2 actually jumps about 100 years forward or so,
Mm-hmm.
and it's the Foundation has on Terminus taken on a new, almost religious-like quality.
Right. Kind of cult-like.
They've
Yeah.
got sort of brothers and sisters, or sort of quasi-religious figures, but there is the rise of a danger from a telepathic entity. This telepathic entity, Telem Bond, played by the great Rachel House, one of our Polynesian actors
Yes.
that we see in a lot of New Zealand fare. She's fantastic. Anyway, she's a member of a group of Mentalics who are ostensibly just trying to live on their own separately, but who actually will, through some of their members, pose a great threat to both the Empire and the Foundation. Also in the second season, Gale reunites with her daughter, Salvor Hardin, played by Leah Harvey.
Which, of course, is the weird thing, because what ends up happening is when Gale is on Trantor and things go to jet, basically, she has already had sort of a love interest, this man that she, falls in love with, and of course she's pregnant. So when she's put into this cryo sleep, I guess, or something like that, and shot off before, anything really went wrong, she ends up having this baby. And then, she has the baby before I can't remember how it works. Yeah.
But has the baby.
Has the baby.
Yeah.
And that turns out to be Salvor. So when they reunite, Gale is still her young self, and Salvor is a grown woman now. So it's just kind of this weird.
It's a very interesting
because
dynamic.
of the 100-year jump. So, yeah.
And in the second season, we learned that there is a looming second crisis.
Yes.
And this crisis will ultimately have a huge effect on the galaxy itself.
Yes.
Meanwhile, the Cleonic dynasty is continuing to try and assert its power. They become more paranoid, and Emperor Day decides that he wants to break the chain of clone dependence on clones for the continuance of the dynasty.
Right.
So he plans to marry a queen and kind of break the chain of the clones, which causes all sorts of chaos, and also goes against the wishes of his major domo.
Right.
She's been programmed to follow the original Cleonic plan to keep the clone dynasty in place. So she's going to do everything that she can to subvert that.
Now, I did really enjoy it in the second season. You do get to see how she becomes who she is, or we find out her story. And there was just an original Cleon. His name was Cleon, and he was a small child when he first sees her, right? And she's sort of encased in this prison of some sort. That she was placed there by whoever it was before that. I'm not sure where she gets placed there, or who places her there.
Well, they don't say it on the TV series.
Right.
It's indicated in the books, but we don't want to get too much into the book on it.
Okay. But anyway, it does kind of give a backstory on how and what her priorities were. So I thought that was fascinating. I liked that.
The season culminates with Gale, Salvor, and a digital manifestation of Harry confronting this mentalic Telem Bond, who wants to manipulate their minds and alter the future predicted by psychohistory.
Right.
There then is a kind of a divergence between the books and the TV series.
Ah.
The books, well, both on the TV series and the books, they are predicting the coming of the Mule, an all-powerful Mentalic.
Okay.
In the books, the Mentalic actually takes control of Terminus. However, the fate of Terminus in the TV series, of course, is it's destroyed. So we'll kind of get into that. Anyway, the Emperor and his forces meet with Foundation leadership. They go to the vault and demand to see Harry, and they ask that Harry denounce his principles. He refuses, and then Emperor Day orders his Imperial flagship, the Invictus, to be crashed into Terminus, which destroys the planet. And so in that sense, there is a divergence from the books, but I know that David and Josh and all the writers behind the series have their reasons for doing that.
Okay.
And that leads us into Series 3.
Right.
Which is going to be hopefully coming later this year.
Yep. Well, let me just, this is kind of the spoiler on the end of season 2, but we do see that majority of the Foundation is actually salvaged or they survive this crash, the destruction of their planet.
Yeah.
You've got Gale and Selden in this, tropical, wherever the heck they are, with where the Telebon was. Is that where it's Telembond? So they're there, and they are put into another cryo-sleep situation. And then also you've got the Cleons, the idea of, perpetuating naturally a next heir to the Cleon Empire is actually foreseen, or it's actually happens, because young Day Dawn, I guess brother Dawn, ends up fathering a child with the princess that was supposed to be the queen. So we've got that. All three of those things are going on.
And again, some divergences from the books, as well as some things that will mirror the books as we move into the third season.
Yeah. But yeah, tell me, you being the sort of reading the books and whatnot, you really enjoyed the series. Why did you enjoy it so much?
Well, because for one thing, I think Isaac would have been very proud to see his creation brought to life in such a beautifully realized, photorealistic, incredible high production take on the future, and where they've chosen to kind of build their own storyline out of it. I think they're good creative choices.
Okay.
And so I think Isaac would approve of it. But where it's heading, we don't want to give away too many spoilers, but massive changes coming in season 3. And I can't wait for it to come. But again, I think Isaac would be very, very pleased to see where the series has gone. And we're curious to know, what you viewers think of the series so far.
Absolutely.
So please contact us. And by the way, how can they contact us to let us know?
Well, they can
their
let
thoughts?
us know in the comments below.
Yep.
Let us know some of your thoughts on Foundation, if you liked it or didn't like it, and we can respond to you that way. But absolutely, let us know what you think.
Anyway, it's a good watch. So if you haven't, for God's sakes, if you haven't seen it already, get behind watching seasons 1 and 2 of Foundation, and we'll be looking forward to it.
And stick with it, man. And pay attention, because there's a lot going on. And you want to make sure, because I had to kind of go back a few times, what, and then move forward. So it's one of those deep thought kind of shows.
If it's too easy of a story, if it's too easy of a read, if it's too easy of a watch, then you're not being challenged enough.
And you must be challenged in the sci-fi world. It has to happen.
Anyway, so Kit, thanks so much.
Thanks, Adam.
And I hope you guys get a chance to see Foundation on TV. We'll all eagerly await season 3, and when it comes out, I'm sure we'll be talking all about it.
Absolutely. Take care, everyone.
Thanks, you guys. Thanks, Kit.
Well, this last episode, we were talking about the time that we were forced into using metal detectors for the anniversary of Star Trek with Gene and Majel.
And as I had mentioned in our last segment, there was good reason to do that.
Yeah, there were death threats and so forth, so we really didn't have any choice. The government demanded that we do. But in those days, the metal detectors were not good, and everyone was setting it off, and we were running really late.
It was a bad vibe.
And everyone was screaming, Gene, Gene, Gene. So we covered thanks to Richard Arnold and Eric Stillwell.
Yeah.
And then we opened. And I think it was one of the highlights of our career, what happened. Everyone was really there for Gene, although the rest of the cast was there.
Yeah.
And was Gene Roddenberry the first producer writer that was really recognized in that fandom way?
I'd say he was certainly one of the first.
Early.
And but I don't think anybody was prepared for when Majel rolled Gene out in a wheelchair in front of the audience. People didn't really know that Gene was already somewhat convalescent at that point. And she did bring him out with Rod.
Yeah, that was great.
And it just took the audience a moment to adjust. But then, of course, there was a thunderous standing ovation, and Gene was clearly taken aback, and
yeah, it was special.
Had some visionary things to say to the audience, including the fact that the soul of a writer remains humble even in the face of adulation.
Yeah. I remember that. That was nice.
And then professed that the truth of everything was that he loved everyone there, which was wonderful. So it was a well-deserved moment for Gene, very poignant. But sadly, just a few months later, Gene passed away.
Right, I do remember that. But that was the last time the whole cast appeared with Gene.
Yeah, and it was the last time Gene appeared on stage.
Correct, but then we had the whole cast again when we did that show with Paramount back in
the Huntsville event.
Yeah, everyone was there.
We did, but the behind-the-scenes story of Gene's passing and then our ongoing work with Majel
that was interesting.
Quite a story itself.
Shall we get into that or say
sure a bit
now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. You were in the middle of that. Oh, sure. And then also during the Shrine thing. There was a problem with Majel and Nimoy, if I remember.
Well,
she was afraid. No,
Leonard had some grievances with Gene.
Okay.
And as did Bill. And without dredging up the past, I think that there had been some animosity over some different things that honestly were water under the bridge. But I think everybody put their best face on, and
from a fan, attendee point of view, I don't think but there was stuff going on behind the scenes.
Yeah, without naming names, I think it was determined that the cast was not going to appear on stage with Gene,
and the entire cast,
and rather that Gene would then come on after the rest of the cast had appeared.
Is that what happened?
That is what happened.
Okay. Yeah. So there were all this behind the scenes stuff, but it's still a special moment because
it was an amazing moment. Anyway, a few months later, Gene passed away, which was horrible and not unexpected. And Majel essentially assumed the altar of the Roddenberry estate, both privately as well as at our conventions.
Yeah.
Continuing to talk a lot about Gene and the great work that he had done, as well as her own experience in Star Trek. And Majel was an amazing orator.
Yeah, she was great with speeches. Yeah,
and really delivered some great speeches to our audiences. Well, during this period, Majel and I had gotten quite close.
I remember.
And Majel and Gene were living in now forgive me, it's either Errol Flynn or Cary Grant. One of those two guys in that person's mansion in Bel Air. Yeah, very historic house. That they had, renovated beautifully, and it was an amazing place.
This used to be Cary Grant's house, is that right?
Yeah, he and Hutton owned it at one time.
Have you ever had anybody find out where you live and be a nuisance?
We're on all those lists. Yeah, people come over here and stop. One of the reasons the gates up there went up was one day I came out the front door and there was a bus sitting in the driveway. Right in front of the door. With they said that later because we'd called on them, and they said later there were 70 Japanese businessmen who had come over who wanted to see the house.
Oh no!
All friendly and nice, but it's frightening.
Yeah,
it's very frightening.
Majel was famous for her parties.
I remember that.
And I would get invited to her parties, and which were great. And she'd bring in a sushi chef and a lot of the creative community of Hollywood.
But old
would show up.
Older community.
Yeah, there were some of the young ones like me. I was like pretty fresh behind the ear.
Right,
At
no,
that
but
point.
they
Yeah,
would be
wasn't
the older guard.
Yeah, as well as I think a lot of their friends, quite honestly, from the Bel Air Country Club.
Yeah, they were golfers.
You know.
Well, she was.
Yeah. So out of my attending these parties, I discovered that the Roddenberrys had a greenhouse, and I, being a horticulturist, Major would let me go in there, and I discovered that she had an orchid collection.
Yeah, I remember this too.
That was not under good upkeep as of Gene passing away. So I said, Majel, let me come in once a month and take care of your orchids, because they need help, and it's an expensive collection. She said, that's wonderful, go ahead and do it. And I did. So I go in there, and one day when I'm in the Roddenberry estate, and I'm talking to Majel, I look over on the floor, there's a pile of scripts, like this high up off the floor, right?
In the greenhouse?
Yeah. No, in the Roddenberry house.
Okay.
And I said to her, what are all those scripts? She said, oh, those are all scripts for projects that Gene never got to develop.
Yeah, right.
So once I pulled my chin off the floor, I said, can I look at those? She says, of course. So I go over and I start looking, and I see development versions of Questar and Questor
Yep.
and several different Roddenberry projects that had never come to fruition.
But we had heard of the names of them, right? 'Cause they
We
did
heard of
pilots
some of the
and-
names,
yeah.
but a lot of those we had not heard of. And Andromeda, and
Earth Final Conflict was in there.
yes, and one or two other projects as
So
well.
this is another one of these stories you're telling me. I have never heard this.
I can't believe what. Well, you had to have tangentially known this, because I said to him at the time we were represented by,
Which we were, yeah.
and
No, I know that, but you never told me the story about the scripts.
oh yeah, big part that.
You never told me about the orchids.
How did Majel end up at? I said
I
to
know.
Majel,
Yeah, this- all right,
I said,
this is-
Majel, you're
yeah.
sitting on a gold mine of these undeveloped Roddenberry stories. Let's take them to our agent, and maybe we can develop something.
Right.
So we did. We brought them to our agents, who remain nameless.
Yeah.
I don't think he's with them anymore, but
No,
he was at the
retired.
time.
Yeah.
And I went in and I said, and I brought Majel. I said, here's Majel Roddenberry, Gene Roddenberry's wife, and we have all of these undeveloped Roddenberry intellectual property. The guy said, this is unbelievable. Let's take these and we'll develop them for film and TV.
And you're in the room.
Yeah, no, I mean, I was like, and so he says, all right, I'll get back to you. And he comes back to me and he says, listen, we've attached Biller and Brancato, two of the hottest writers in Hollywood right now, to work with you and Majel to develop Spectre, I think it was called.
And he said you.
Yeah. You, Creation, will be executive producers. Majel will broker the deal with Biller and Brancato.
I don't remember having a TV show with Creation Entertainment as executive producers.
Well, that's because it never happened.
Why? I know
Okay.
why.
Well, so the thing started ramping up. Biller and Brancato wrote a treatment, and everything was fantastic. And then I started to notice a lack of communication. And tangentially, somehow I had heard all of a sudden that there was another project by Roddenberry in development, the Earth Final Conflict.
Yeah.
So I call up our guy. I said, what happened to Spectre? Why am I hearing about Earth Final Conflict? He says, well, we're also developing that with Majel as well. And I said, well, okay, I'm not aware of anything about that. How are we involved? And he says, no, you're not involved. This is just us working with Majel.
Yeah,
on
they
Earth
cut
Final Conflict.
that Creation out.
Well, we didn't understand that at the time, but long story short, as well you know, but our viewers don't necessarily know, we got strip mined. They not only developed Earth Final Conflict, but also Andromeda with Majel, and cut us out. And our potential career as executive producers and showrunners was cut to an untimely and quick death.
Yeah, that didn't sound too good. Yeah.
No, it wasn't good, and it was a source of huge pain and animosity between Majel and myself
For the rest of her life. Well, I think you reconciled, and I did too.
For years.
For years, yeah.
But as Majel grew old and elderly and infirm, my sense of affection for her, and of course for Gene. Just kind of overrode that. And as you're getting towards the end of somebody's life, are we really gonna, unless it's the most hugest transgression, we're gonna really worry about that? We had to let it go. And the last year or two with Majel, I was back to speaking terms with her, and she appeared for us a few more times. And then the great Majel Roddenberry passed away, which is very sad. And Eugene Rod had grown up from the little boy who slept in a box underneath one of our vendor tables at our show, had grown up into a wonderful, talented young man who now assumed the Roddenberry mantle, and along with his partner Trevor, actually began using the Roddenberry cachet to develop any number of projects, intellectual properties themselves. And I thought that they did a great job sort of continuing the Roddenberry legacy.
Yeah, they did. I'm sad they're not part of Vegas anymore, but maybe in the future.
Well, I would hope that we'll see them again in the future. But that's sort of the untold story of our relationship with Majel after Gene passed. This is the first time the story has ever been discussed publicly. And again, I think my overall feeling is that I'm always going to love Gene and Majel, but especially Gene. He was a mentor to us. He was a wonderful man. He believed in Star Trek fans.
Yeah, he did.
He believed in the future of humanity. And, you take a look at society today, and sometimes you really have to wonder how he could have such a humanistic feeling.
Especially now, yeah.
But Gene's inspiration, his enthusiasm, his belief in the good of humanity will always be huge inspirations to me, and you as well.
Yeah, no, definitely. That was a great story. Thanks. We'll be back next week.
Okay.
Wow, Stephen Moffat's a very cool dude.
Man alive, that was one of the best interviews I've ever seen, and Gary and Adam never disappoint in their Creation Looks Back segments. I could listen to those guys for hours.
For hours.
Sometimes I do.
So what's going on now? What's happening with Creation Entertainment?
Well, if you love Star Trek like I do, then you're pretty cool and I want to know you. Also, a great way to know me would be to see me and Kit and most of us over at the Creation Trek Tours. We're all over the country. You can find us in Las Vegas, Orlando, New Jersey, Chicago. Wherever you live, basically, we're close by. But especially, I want you to check out the show in Las Vegas. That's this August. We're going to have Strange New Worlds guests, people from
the Kelvin movies.
I mean, William Shatner, the original series.
And Walter Koenig.
I know. Can't wait for that. Deep Space Nine, Next Generation, all of your favorite actors, writers, producers.
The 30th anniversary of Voyager. We have the entire cast.
I was bearing the lead, you're right. The big news is Voyager's 30th anniversary. We're going to give them a gigantic celebration. We love the show. We love the series. I know you do too. Join us for that. Thank you, Kit.
Thank you, Ryan. And tune in for our next episode 5, where we have some more great stuff to tell you guys and great new interviews. Stay tuned.